Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by CoolStuffInc.com, mana traders, as well as Twitch subs and Patreon supporters just like yourself. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Power Dragon.
Hey, what's up, y'all? And if you missed the pre-show, you missed some ridiculous stories.
Craziness. Patrons, subs, and/or watchers live on Wednesday nights can join us for all that fun stuff. Ruben Bressler.
I've realized that I look the most regular human that I think I've ever looked. My background isn't weird. I'm wearing a plain blue button-up shirt.
I thought you were about to say compared to
you could use some lighting, quite frankly.
I could use some lighting.
You could definitely use some lighting.
My camera has a light, but like the lighting in this room is weird. And also now that we're actually in winter, it's a little tougher. But
hey, I am loving the fact that we are in actual like autumn. The leaves on the trees outside are changing. I had to turn my heat on for the first time this week. Like, let's go.
When I moved to the Northwest, I actually got 4 seasons and my whole wardrobe mattered again. Like, it was crazy. Totally not like living in Texas. Like, seeing actual red and yellow on trees instead of going from green to nothing. Awesome.
Right. Or just green to green because it's just evergreen.
Yeah. That's just some trees are that way.
Right. Like in Orlando, it's just the palm trees are the palm trees, so they're just going to stay palm tree-ish forever. All right. So that said, if you missed our pre-show, you should check that out if you can. Kick it off with our first pick in our giveaway. Get your chance at $50 worth of anything at CoolStuffInc.com by typing !raffle in the chat. But subscribe first to get 2 chances. Use those dangling primes. If you got Prime, you can sub, no problem. Let the Bezos bucks do the talking. And support your favorite streamer with your suggestions at the end of the show to see who we raid tonight. That is thanks to our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com. You can find cool stuff in stock every day. CommandFest Orlando is this weekend. If you can go, CommandFestOrlando.com. Check it out. It's going to be a really super fun time. Okay, so what we had this week is the culmination of sort of what the last 3-ish years, essentially. And as I was saying in the pre-show, I feel like tonight's theme is that both can be true. Both things can be true because they introduced what is called a play booster. There's going to be no set booster. There's going to be no draft booster. There's going to now be a play booster. We are going to put their powers together with their powers combined and make a new conjoined experience. And I'll note, and we'll go into this a little bit, but the first thing I want to talk about here is how they note sort of the problems, like why these things exist this way. And he said set boosters eclipsed draft boosters. Now, again, both of these things can be true. Set boosters could be successful. Wizards also set them up to be very successful.
Right.
So if you recall, when set boosters originally came out, and I've got a box of Zendikar Rising over there, they would not allow stores to sell draft boxes until release day, but they would let them sell set boxes on pre-release day and all throughout the week leading up to release. I wonder which box sold better as a result. So that to me is the only problem I have with the narrative that like set boosters destroyed draft booster boxes. Well, of course they did, because you choked them out of the market. But
I'll say this though, I think it was going to happen anyway.
I agree with you. I'm saying that they
ultimately, because
right.
Draft, while some of us old schoolers do appreciate draft more than other players, draft just doesn't make up nearly as much of the booster sales as people would like to believe.
Right. And what I feel is like they basically put their finger on the scale a little bit, but the scale was going that way anyway. I'm not saying that's not true. I'm saying that they both can be true, but what it feels like, honestly, at this point, sort of trying to look at it through a lens of the multiple years of how this happened, and one led to another, which led, the showcase stuff led to the collector booster stuff, which led to the set booster stuff. And it honestly just feels like an evolution, right? If you were going to try to create a booster box that costs more, you make a higher cost booster box. You make this is clearly the lesser product, that being the draft booster boxes. Over time, the market's going to favor one over the other. Then you have the argument to get rid of the cheapest option, the one that people aren't buying as much of. And I also understand that some stores can only hold one booster box or another. When it came to picking winnings, people didn't like draft boosters as winnings. They like set boosters as winnings.
Sure.
Which again makes all the sense in the world. So I appreciate sort of them coming at it as that like set boosters were going to squash draft boosters, but I also know that they had a lot in making sure that happened.
I'm willing to accept that my view of which pack I prefer is myopic at worst and skewed at best. I'm willing to accept that my belief that a pack that is opened outside of stocking your shop or participating in a draft is blasphemy is not the popular one. And I'm willing to accept that I'm the old hat here. However, I do want to ask, as people who've worked at places like Cool Stuff Inc. or your own LGS in the past, which do you think you would prefer if you had your druthers as a game store owner? You're only allowed to buy, I don't know what the number is. Let's say it's 2 cases. Let's say your local game store is getting 2 cases of product, for the CSIs and the big.
It doesn't even matter
bigger.
what parameters you put on it. The answer set boosters for me.
Yeah,
it's easy,
really?
and it's not even close.
It's
not
just
even
okay.
close.
Yeah.
Like right when they were announced, the idea of like one of the problems you have with the regular booster box is you just end up with all these extra commons and uncommons that are just more of the same, right? You eliminate a lot of that in the set booster, and people were getting more rares and mythics. Even if you did, I don't know, rares and mythics per dollar you spend on the box, you're still going to be better with set boosters. So it's just buy those. And that's what a lot of people just chose to do. And you get all the, the list and the quirky things and whatever.
Right.
But
and,
yeah, even just straight up rares to less waste, you were going to be better off with the set boosters.
And this is where the sort of that narrative of, there was market confusion. Wizards caused the market confusion. They did this, and when to solve it, they took away the market confusion by taking away the less expensive product. That's how a lot of people view it. But at the same time, these new play boosters are going to come in booster boxes of 36, just like draft used to. They're going to be priced the exact same as set boosters now, which does mean your average booster box price is going to about $144 or so-ish. But again, that's because set boosters now had 30 packs versus 36, and they're adding 6 packs, which adds about $24 or so in cost, which adds up to about $144 for a booster box. And so, yeah, there was some abandon of draft boosters because, again, you'd rather have the opportunity of opening more rares. The showcase stuff is neat and fun, and you might find some of it in regular booster, but not usually. And, it makes some magic boosters less desirable. This is a lot of this, like we were saying, Power Dragon, where, like, Wizards does kind of explain a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, more than they need to, but it makes people feel good.
Right. Yeah. Because, I think the audience is smart enough to get it, but at the same time, they're like, look, people this looks like a crappy product, and we're letting you know that it made this product look bad, and so we don't want the product to look bad.
You want to know something funny, too? If you look at the old booster box price of $3.99 times 36 boosters, you know what that is? $143.64.
Mm-hmm.
But people didn't know that because everybody was trying to sell $100 booster boxes or whatever it was, right? Making $15 a box or whatever the hell.
Right.
So this actually isn't going to end up that much more expensive for the average person than what boxes should have been previously anyway. My only gripe is we could have kept them at 24 count boxes. I think this is a concession by Wizards to say, like, see, we're not really getting rid of draft stuff, and you can have your whole draft in a box, and they make more per box. But ultimately, every other game, I think, except for Pokemon at this point, has 24 count booster boxes.
Well, and and they kind of like hand waved it away because they wanted to like run 3 drafts out of the box or whatever. And I'm like, whatever. Again, this is the both can be true. They can say that they are saving draft because they are. Like, this was draft dies or you do this, and you can try to make more money for the company. It's just capitalism. They have shareholders. They want to make the number. They want to make the line go up.
But can I say something about the fake outrage on, this is going to affect draft and draft's going to be terrible? Like, people went back and tried to draft Battle Bond boosters. People have tried to draft the Double Masters or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, doesn't matter. People that want to draft are going to draft.
People draft you.
Exactly. It generally, and yes, I get it. You want to balance draft and all that. Not saying we shouldn't aim for that. But the reality is people that want to draft are going to draft. Hell, we were talking about it earlier. Like, even with games like Raw Deal and other games, people come up with ways to draft them, even though they're not designed in any way for draft. Like, people that like to draft are going to draft.
Yeah. And Magic
draft is going nowhere.
Right. Magic originally wasn't designed to be drafted.
Right.
Dude, do you see those abysmal beta drafts they did?
They were bad.
Those were awful to watch.
Unwatchable, unplayable.
It was really uncomfortable. Right. And so, like, Psychic Venom was killing people and stuff. So that's cool. But, again, I'd also recognize, again, if we're going to be, we're max cynical here. They are reducing from 15 cards to 14 cards. 5 to 7% of those printing costs of the real Magic cards, blah, blah, blah. That's just max cynicism. Again, I recognize that to make a higher cost product means that the lowest entry you're going to have is now like $1.44 MSRP versus before where the draft boosters were smaller. So some amount of people could stop buying these boxes and or stores could stop selling them, but you have a gap there that even if less buy because the price is that much higher, you have that much to work with. You know what I'm saying? Like you can lose 5%, but if you're charging 10% more,
right,
you've actually made 5%. You know what I'm saying? So like all that can be true.
I am glad that there is going to be two options going forward. I think it would have been a mistake to completely eliminate and only give one option. Some cars want unleaded, some cars need premium. Some Magic players want the different type of pack. Like that is just you're not gonna change people's opinion of the way they want to consume Magic by how you release the product.
Sure.
So having two different streams for that, I think, is a better business decision than one or the other in any case.
I just hate seeing the people that are trying to complain and make it a thing it's not, because a lot of the arguments don't even seem genuine. Like, are you really arguing for the 15th pick in your pack that almost isn't going to make the cut 99% of the time anyway? Like, it's going to be a junk card nobody wants to keep in their collection at the end of the draft. Like nobody cares about that 15th card. Let's be honest.
And I hate to break it to you, no one's going to get 24 rares in a sealed pool. Nobody's going to get that. Actually, they're just
I saw that somebody did the math on that possibly ever happening.
Oh,
and
Lord.
It's like worse than the odds for, I think it was like the New York State lottery or something. Like it's
it's insane.
So very quickly. Yeah, I mean, exponentials very quickly get into the incalculable range.
Yeah. So I recognize that. Are we going to have more rares than an average? Yes. But like back in Amazon Restored, you could open 3 mythic rares in one pack. It did happen. The foil was mythic, the double face card was mythic, and the other rare was mythic. That did occur.
And we drafted it fine.
The world didn't end. War of the Spark had a Planeswalker in every pack. Like it was okay. So like if the draft format gets a little bit more sort of higher powered, that's what Cube is, and Cube is awesome. Like, think back to all of your draft formats, particularly your favorite draft formats. Were they lower powered? You know what I mean? Were they underpowered? Were they on the bottom end of the power scale? Or were they in the middle or the upper end of the echelon of the power scale? Those were my favorite formats. Like, Dominaria was perfectly balanced. I would argue is in like middle to upper range. It wasn't underpowered, but all the sets that have been kind of pulled back were like, I mean, I just didn't have as much fun with them. I just didn't.
Here's another thing to consider too, because a lot of people that are experienced with draft or sealed want to say that like, oh, it's a level playing field, whatever. But we all know it's crap. Like if you have more experience, you're going to just curb stomp everybody that's new that shows up to the table.
Sure.
So a lot of players would draft once or twice, get curb stomped, not draft anymore. But now there's a chance that they walk away with a couple more rares from the draft, and now they don't feel so bad about it.
Yep. And now they're better chance of coming back.
Yeah, you might get a couple more people. You know what? Last time I drafted, I got these couple of really cool cards, and I only really lost like $3 or $4. Like, okay, cool. I'll draft again, and maybe we'll see what happens. Right? I'm not going to say it's happened a ton, but that's going to be a non-zero number. That's going to have a much higher, I guess, happiness quotient at the end of the draft.
I'm going to argue this for a couple of reasons. The devil needs no advocates, but I'm going to argue this anyway. Because I know for a fact someone right now is typing on their keyboard a YouTube comment saying, "Oh, you Watsy shills, how dare you come on here and approve of every decision that they've ever made?" Which is, whatever, man.
You should follow me around the internet. I got
come on, y'all. You've not been watching long enough.
I mean, exactly. But so there is sort of that angle, but I also want to, because this show is hosted by us three, and we have been doing this or something in Magic for 2 decades.
Almost.
Contextually, big changes like this are scary.
Sure.
And big changes to the product that comes off of the shelf don't happen a ton. The last time that something this monumental of a change happened was when they added a basic land to the booster box or to the booster pack.
Maybe something like that.
When they did away with tournament packs.
Added double face cards. Remember that?
People
Added
don't
double face
remember,
cards,
like
sure.
when they moved to having a foil instead of just having like
That
just
too.
the rares having
There you
foils
go.
in like 7th edition or whatever. Like people were
But
up in arms about that, right? 'Cause
all
foils
of
weren't gonna
those
be special
decisions
anymore.
are scary.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think all of those decisions did ultimately lead to a better buying pack and buying cards experience.
Absolutely. And you know, I've been in this game like literally figuratively way too long to get like jump scared over something that they're changing. Like Magic is a shark. It has to keep moving. It has to keep changing. That's the reason we're still here after 30 years. If they just locked in what they've been doing, tons of people would have already left and tons of people wouldn't be here today. Like they have to do and change and try different stuff. And so like the fact that 15 cards were in the booster, that's something the printer told them 30 years ago. Like literally, that's why it is. And for something to be like, for you to try to advocate that something should stay the same because that's the way we've always done it is the number one reason you should change it. Like actual number one reason.
Sure.
Now, I want to say, Whittle in the comments here saying somebody told him the problem is going to be with 14 cards that 6-player pods are going to be underpowered or something, or overpowered. I don't know. I'm having a hard time parsing that, but there's no difference. Like, take the last card next time you draft. Take the last card in the pack, the common, and just toss it off the table. Your draft is not going to be any different.
Throw it in the.
It's
like the Jack. What was that Jack Black song where they were like, "I want a 5-piece nuggets." We only sell 6-piece nuggets.
Yeah, exactly.
What I want you to do is I want you to get the 6-piece nuggets, throw the 6th nugget away, and give me a 5-piece. That's what you're asking us.
That's what we're doing. Okay, so some things that are changing as well is that the list is going to drop from 300 cards to 40 cards, which is awesome.
Thank God, because there's so much trash.
There's trash.
I've been asking for this literally every time I've opened a box on stream.
Didn't they end up putting like basic lands in the list slot or something silly?
I get the other. Oh no, I have this. I have it still sitting here because I was just griping about this the other day. The Oaken Brawler. Like nobody needs this piece of trash.
Nobody wanted it. Nobody asked for it.
There's no shortage of these in the world.
Yeah.
Why is this on the list? Like it makes the list spot just not feel exciting because you're going to open trash 9 out of 10 times.
So they can localize it into Japanese, which is cool. The Japanese market's super important to Wizards. And they can thematically tie in the list to either the world or the limited environment. This is the idea that these cards are going to show up and they are going to be a part of it. And I think that's great. That's cool. And there's still going to be bonus sheets. And they can have bonus sheets if they want, or they can get rid of them. And again, this also allows them the freedom to really start doing interesting stuff with boosters. They can say each booster needs X or Y without having to do this like, well, set boosters are doing it this way and draft boosters are doing it this way. And you're going to have to explain it to everybody every single time forever. It's like, no, this set is doing something cool and weird. Here's what its booster looks like. And your collector booster can still be full of foils and showcase, whatever.
Yeah, that
but what you play with is the play booster. I think that's cool. I think that's great. Some cards will be replaced on Arena because they wouldn't make sense in any other format on the client, which I don't understand. Like they pre-banned Ragavan. They took the time to code Ragavan. You know what I mean? Just weird. Whatever. And the bonus commander cards and set boosters are being retired moving forward, which is great because that was weird and hard to explain.
Yeah, it didn't make sense.
Skill testing.
I will say this too. A lot of the retailers I've spoken to, which is quite a few at this point about this, it's like 95% positive, and I'm not even exaggerating.
Oh,
like, and
great.
that almost happens never with any company making a big announcement, especially Wizards. So the fact that all the people that have literal skin in the game, like people that are mortgaging their houses for their businesses or whatever, they are all okay with this.
Right.
Like that should tell you it's a net positive.
Right. I mean, this was a thing again, whether it was engineered, whether it was a long-term plan or not, a good idea can be a good idea. And also Wizard is 1000% known for stopping bad things and doing something different to ideally fix the situation. You don't see set-based Jumpstart anymore, do you all? Do you see that? Because you don't, because it was terrible.
For how big of a division of a major company like Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast is, it is remarkably fast. It's never going to have a 40 time like a DB, but it's pretty fast for alignment.
Yeah. And I will say, having been there, like for the most part, Hasbro isn't as hands-on with Wizards as people think, because Wizards operates on a whole different level than they do, producing an entirely different type of product. But the other issue is that the average age of the consumer for Wizards of the Coast products is much older. Yeah. Right. I would say the average age for stuff at Hasbro is probably in the teens. Right. Whereas you go way older for Magic. You're nearly 30, like 27 and a half years old or something.
Right.
So you're just doing stuff differently, and they look and say, well, what you're doing is making money. This is why we bought you. We ain't going to get in the way.
And like, are you telling me that you're going to just die on the hill of, if my draft is $3 more, I can't ever draft? Like, guys, come on. If the packs are more juiced and it's a higher power level, that's okay.
You stand to get more value out of your drafts as well.
Right.
So there's a good chance, maybe not every draft, but let's say every other draft, you're going to recoup those $3 or $4 in some rare or mythic anyway.
Yeah.
If my favorite drink size at my restaurant goes from 32 ounces, I'm a fat American, goes from 32 ounces to 28 ounces, but the quality of the product, the percentage of real juice in it goes up, I'm a happy camper.
It's, again, this is one of those, like, they did make the price the same, but again, you're getting a bunch of value out of it. We're not going to go over like how the packs are made up. You can feel free to check that out yourself. But basically the products are merging. Set boosters are kind of become play boosters. The environment will be a little bit higher level in terms of like power level, but they've been working on that, including some, more common answers to mythic stuff, because you'll see that stuff more often. All that stuff's been thought of, because these changes aren't made lightly, and they do take a long time. And yeah, they clearly saw that, either draft dies and we fix it, or draft just dies. You know what I mean? And
that's
the
the thing
to
too.
Go away.
I think that's a good point as well, right? They're even saying we're putting this effort in to make sure the proper cards exist so you can still have your draft experience.
Right.
We can't magically say like, well, draft was great before with the draft boosters or whatever, and then magically it's just going to be terrible with the same people making the draft environment for the new booster, right? Like, if you accepted the first one, you have to at least reasonably give them a chance on the new one.
Yeah. And, yes, Wizards have made bad decisions, and this may be part of them. We don't know. But again, everything, like, eyes open, makes sense. Everything has a reason. Nothing is like weird or corporate speak. All of this stuff has reasons as to why they exist, and all makes sense. So
and we're not going to sit here and play dumb. Like, we know that, yes, it allows them to sell a higher cost booster over the cheaper booster, or the higher cost booster box. Like, we get that part. That's the only, to me, downside of the whole thing, is we couldn't put these in 24 count booster boxes.
Yeah, things are getting more expensive.
I would be all over the moon saying 100%. So I'm at like a 90-95%. But that's my only real gripe here.
Right. It's a little bit bigger of a buy-in. But as a business, that's what they want. And you're going to make that decision for that reason. I get it. You don't have to love it. You just have to understand why it's happening.
And a lot of people buy packs. They're not all buying boxes. There are a lot of people that only buy packs 3 or 4 at a time, 1 at a time, as they visit their local stores.
Yeah, if you knew, just like, and if you spend some time in local game stores, not everybody gets to, but people will come in and they're just like, give me a pack of so-and-so, or give me this, that, the other. Like, they just
imagine the person who goes to buy Magic at Target and you see the collector booster draft pack, whatever
set thing,
and you're like,
intro, whatever,
except for different artwork on the outside, you don't know what it is, and they cost different. Like, now there's just 2. It's just you get the collector one that's super expensive, or you get the whatever $425, $475 booster, whatever it is now, right?
They're already overwhelmed by the 45 sets that come out a year.
Seriously.
Yeah, like this is easy, a lot easier on everybody.
Well, I thought it was interesting. Sam Stoddard, who is no longer with Wizards, but was with Wizards for a very long time, he chimed in and he said, I think the larger long-term risk for Magic isn't related to the exact makeup of boosters, but the product release schedule that doesn't give time for people to get engrossed enough in a setting or a set to actually develop nostalgia for it. And I think that's 100% correct, because it's like, things just come and go so quickly. They're talking about Fallout stuff tomorrow. Y'all, Doctor Who just came out last Friday. We were having such a good time talking about the TARDIS and all the weird stuff with the doctors, and you're talking to me about Fallout tomorrow? Like, could we wait just a little bit? Like, damn.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Though, I also feel that we could circumvent some of that by going, and I know they don't like doing blocks or whatever, because the second and third sets ended up being weaker than the first set.
Unless it's Ravnica, and then they do.
Yeah. But realistically, I think that's part of what could help this situation, right? Because you're not just running to a new plane and having to explain new stories and new characters or whatever. It's like, okay, well, for at least 6 months, we're going to talk about the same world and the same characters, and then it doesn't feel as bad, even though there's maybe 2 sets in there or whatever.
That's why sequels are so popular nowadays. You don't have to explain who Iron Man is again. You don't have to invest all this extra time in your media to give context. And that's the benefit of a sequel or a 7th season of a show or whatever. And Magic has moved away from that model, which is great in some ways, but is also counter to, how the human mind works.
Like, after you went through so many sets of guilds, we have Throne of Eldraine, right? After War of the Spark, there was Throne. And that was cool because it was super different, which made a big impression. It was before they started to really ramp up everything. So I think a lot of people were able to develop that nostalgia, which is why the Return of Eldraine has been a big success in that part. And it's been fun and cool to see the characters and so on. But, like, who's thirsting after Kaldheim? Like,
I was just gonna say,
who remembers a damn thing about it? Like,
Kaldheim deserved so much more love.
It really did.
Cool concept, and it has shaped so much of the current landscape of the greater world of Magic, the World Tree and the Omen Paths.
Yeah.
Right.
But like, no one remembers anything about people barely knew anything about Kaldheim when it was out.
And shout out to the Maverick Girl for having raising that banner, because I thought it was neat. And what little I learned about it, because they had little lore for every single color pairing around the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it was neat. It was like, oh, never mind, we're in Strixhaven now. You're like, wait, what? And it's like, nope, never mind, we're in the D&D set now. You're like, huh? And it's like, we're going to have 2 sets of Innistrad, but they're going to be really weird, and the werewolves aren't going to be very good, and the vampire set are going to have very good vampires, and Lord God is weird. And then we're in Kamigawa, and this set's great. Oh, shut up, we're in Streets of New Cabana. Like, or New Cabana. Like, holy cow.
That was kind of the thing when I saw the new release schedule, because us coming back to Eldraine felt in a way kind of quick, because it was just 3 years ago or whatever. But
7.
Was it that long?
It was 2016, wasn't it? Throne of Eldraine.
I guess it was. I guess so. Yeah.
Right. Throne of Eldraine. Oh, I'm sorry. I was wrong. It was 4 years ago. September 2019.
And it felt a little bit sudden, because they seem to take like somewhere between 5 and 7 years before we revisit stuff again.
Generally, yeah.
But I kind of had that same thought of, well, this is one of the few times you go, okay, it's not going to feel as bad going back to World People Know, right? Because to Ruben's point, it was, okay, we don't have to reintroduce a lot of these people, a lot of these places. Like, we know about the royal family and the twins and whatever. So like, now we can just talk about what they're doing now, right? Instead of trying to reintroduce that. And I think we need to be doing that at this rate, at least once a year, if not twice a year.
For sure.
And the in-between sets can be the new things. But I feel like we're going to get so many new things, except for Carlisle Manor, which is weird to kind of come back to since we just kind of did that.
But
so
like
I don't know.
Who's got the banner for Ikoria? The only thing I remember about Ikoria is Luca, and he's dead. Like Luca and companions were broken. Like, that's all I got for Ikoria. And then off to Zendikar Rising we went. Like, huh? Right. It's just, it kind of came and went with Godzilla stuff. And it's just, I understand as they've ramped up, they've sold more. And that's awesome. But, there comes a time, I think, where you go, look, we've been in this hamster wheel for so long. Things just kind of start blurring after a while, and I feel that blurring can have long-term effects, and that's kind of what Sam was kind of talking about there. But we'll see. And we're going to move on here from our first pick to gather the townsfolk, thanks to our sponsor, Mana Traders, the best tool to enhance your Magic Online experience. Use the code MAGICMICS for 12% off your next subscription with Mana Traders. Tell them we sent you. We appreciate them supporting the show. There was a super cool Black Lotus sculpture, what they call a relief sculpture, which is interesting, from what's this called? Gatherers Tavern.com, which is super cool. I'll bring it up here if you guys check it out. But did you guys get a chance to see this thing?
Yeah, it looks great. I think that this is extremely cool product. I think that you do want to have high-end products for your high-end game that are not game pieces. I think that something like this being available, a sculpture, a piece of jewelry, a watch, something big and flashy like this, I think is 100% the kind of partnership that you should be making. And with a company like Gatherers Tavern that does this for their living, right? They've done stuff like this with other IPs and other companies. They do,
and
like
they have an established relationship
stuff
with Hasbro as well, because they've done D&D and I think Transformers and
Transformers.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I heard of them first as like when I went to Comic-Con and they had a bunch of Transformers stuff.
Oh,
I
neat.
think is where I heard of these guys.
Right, like this is the gift for the person who has everything, like your dad, your uncle that you care about, or aunt or whatnot, who is like they love Magic, but they've got a big collection, they got plenty of decks, they don't need binders, they don't need sleeves. Yeah. You're looking for something cool. This is a cool thing you can get.
Is there any more iconic piece of Magic than what I have as my mouse pad?
It's the classic of classic.
It is.
It's one of those things like this is one of the things to look at and say it's not for me, but I'm still good with it existing.
100%.
Right? Somebody's going to find this very cool. Somebody's going to have a unique piece of art on their wall. Like, yeah, why not?
This is like the Mox jewelry. This is like the watches. Yeah. Like this is all this stuff that you're not the average person's probably not going to get, but somebody's in that neighborhood and they want it. Excuse me. Thought it was cool to see the upcoming Pro Tour promos because who doesn't love a good promo? And I thought these were just absolutely gorgeous.
Absolutely. I love this style.
Love
cartoony sort of pop art style, and also much better choice of cards this time around. Even though it is a common and an uncommon and a rare, we didn't get a mythic. But at least the mythic isn't Dragon Lord Silumgar.
Yeah.
I think that these are great choices. These are 4-ofs in decks. So
like we have Explore, we have Expressive Iteration, which is incredible, and Valakut the Molten Pinnacle. Like, look how cool that is. With like the person there on the side, like super rad. Love it. So yeah, these are really cool, and I like them. And participant for the Explorer, Expressive Iteration for top 8, and Valakut for the winners and participants of the top finisher of the RCs. So that is neat, and I like it. All right, so let's move on here to a few Desperate Ravens. There was an interesting conversation.
You hit a high note there, buddy.
Ooh,
that was pretty.
Thanks. Ooh, hey y'all, what's up?
Voice next season.
The one Brian, don't call me Brian Kibler, noted that he was coming home from CommandFest Portland, which there was a bunch of CommandFest last weekend. This weekend is CommandFest Orlando, and they had a great time seeing old friends and making new ones. But they noted that at that event there were some large competitive events. And it's been really interesting to see, particularly as someone who helps run these large Commander events, is that there isn't like, before there were GPs, there were Grand Prix events. For those who don't remember, like it's starting to get weird in the rear view. Grand Prix events were large constructed events for tens of thousands of dollars that scale based on the number of people who attended them. And yes, there are currently still circuits out there, that aren't official Wizards that provide thousands of dollars in prize money, but those kind of have left Wizards official events, and only recently have some of the large limited events that was in Vegas and some large constructed events they're having at different sort of Magic cons have kind of crept in a little bit. And this was a conversation, internally at CommandFest. Is a large constructed competitive event a thing that you want at that event? Will it cater to them enough to make them want to buy in and buy a ticket and come to the weekend if there's only, for example, one big constructed event, or if there's some small constructed events, is that enough to make them come?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's still something players are getting adjusted to. I was still surprised at MagicCon Vegas to see players who had said they had been playing, some of them for under 6 months, but still made the trip out to Vegas to just come be part of a big Magic thing.
Yeah.
Right. So there's probably some number of competitive players, at least within driving distance. They may not fly in, but within a 3 or 4 hour radius, that would probably still be willing to attend and play something. Yeah. It's at least worth a shot if it's priced accordingly.
Yeah, and there's some certain there's inherent risk depending on the numbers, for example.
Yeah.
And if there's just not the interest there, then they can all just go kaboom, and no one wants that. But there is, I think, at least worth discussing that maybe CommandFest could maybe branch out a little bit and have more constructive based stuff. I don't know.
I would say and it's going to be hard. I don't know what the secret sauce would be, but as long as you can maintain the same feel. And that's very difficult because one of the reasons a lot of casual people didn't show up as often to Grand Prix was because everything was about being competitive, right? And if somebody didn't make day 2, it was the end of the world and you had to listen to all these bad beat stories and people were complaining about their opponents and whatever, right? But well as I do, if you're at a CommandFest, that's almost never a thing.
It's never a thing. somebody didn't do well in like the biggest event. They're like, well, I had fun, whatever. I'm gonna go battle over here.
Like,
yeah,
hey man, that sucks. You want to get a game? Like.
But you're also, I mean, and that's good. But you're also missing like the pageantry. Like,
Sure.
I haven't watched a Pro Tour in such a long time that if I went back and watched one of the Pro Tours that I watched live, like if I went back and watched Pro Tour Austin, that award-winning science educator Kyle Hill, who wrote this tweet, won, I would be wistful. I would be, sad. I would go back and, I used to go back and watch like Bob Maher win a Pro Tour, or watch the John Finkel Kaibude finals from Worlds. And those formats had been long since dead and, not relevant at all. But I would still watch them because the feeling of it was so different. And I know I'm in the minority. This is another old man Ruben thing.
I don't think it's that. I think it's just like nostalgia is a hell of a drug. Like, do I enjoy watching TV on Fridays with TGI Friday on ABC and watching like Family Matters and Full House? And we're like, yeah, of course. But you know what I do now? Like, it's not available, so I watch Friday Night SmackDown. Like, you know what I mean? Like you just have to adjust to what's there. And it's and the audience wants different things now. Like, we grew up in a world of Magic where everything was about being competitive. And now that's not necessarily what the average players. I'm not saying they don't want some competitive events to exist, because like I think they still should. I just don't know how you get there and in a casual, happy environment and still keep that stress level fairly low, so that's still a generally positive experience for everybody.
Yeah, and someone in the chat here noted that they say CommandFests are bad for vendors, and that is not true. If you put too many vendors in a hall, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And one of the things, and do note, when it comes to like between casual players and competitive players, who buys Magic cards? Casual players buy Magic cards.
Yeah.
Like
pass around the offering plate.
Like it's not even close. It's not even close. Like, all the competitive people are borrowing the cards that they need to play with stuff. The casual people are like, oh, that'll go right in this deck. That'll go right in that deck.
The number of people that would walk in and they would want, like, the competitive guys would want to haggle those over like a $4 card. Right? The dude behind them walks in with a list, like all foil. Like, hey, can you get these for me? And that's like a $300 thing or whatever. Like, yep, give me 20 minutes. Right. Yep. So, yeah, to say that, you're totally right. It's just some people running the events don't plan number of players per vendor or whatever.
Right. And if you don't bring the right stock in, for example, and for what it's worth, those vendor booths are to buy cards more than they are to sell cards. So selling's great. Nothing wrong with that. That's great, fantastic. But the way you're going to make most of your money is getting the intake, not the outtake.
To put in perspective on how badly people want to buy, Wizards had to set down rules for Grand Prix of you had to bring certain types of cards or so many cards, whatever, because some vendors were showing up literally just bringing boxes to carry cards in and bags of cash. Like, true story. And they were like, that's not helping anybody, right? We're still running out of cards in the room when people need them. It's a bad experience.
Right.
So, yeah. I don't know where that came from or who told you that, but it's totally wrong.
It's just one of those things where, again, I can understand it, like maybe feeling that way. But again, if you set up a system where there's too many vendors, or there's too cramped of a space, or you don't bring the players near the vendors, like how you set up the hall, like all of these things matter. Like, and it impacts how that business happens for the people who are there. So I can tell you with very much certainty of that the casual people are who you want. Competitive people is a question mark, and it's tough because you say that this works. Setting up a CommandFest this way with very casual events for very casual players, bring a very casual experience, is a thing that works. We know this, and so it's tough to rock that boat.
It's very tough because I can what I do. I've been to hundreds. I don't even want to say 1,000. Probably not that many, but hundreds of events, and even running hundreds more events. Like the CommandFest events are, I would say, a 99% positive experience. Like, it's just everybody's wanting to just jam games and trade cards, and everybody's looking for the rare thing from the vendors for their decks or whatever, and it just feels different.
Right. And I understand that the person in the chat was like, they talked to the TO, and I get it. I understand, but everyone's, all the setups are different, all the feelings are different, the variables are in every which direction. So take all the salt you like with my comments. It's not a big deal. But just telling you my experience. Either way.
I think that I've probably been, if we're counting F&M.
If we're counting F&Ms.
I've probably
Oh,
been to
yeah.
1,000 Magic events.
Oh, if I'm talking like local events, like
Right,
between
include
drafts,
everything.
FNMs, whatever. Oh yeah, I'm definitely over 2K.
If we're only counting like PTQ and up.
Like, if you let me count, like, my cubes that I've ran with friends and
Oh,
things.
I'm not counting. Yeah,
No,
I'm
no,
not
no,
counting.
Oh,
Like,
come on, man.
Night.
Give me that. I could be in the
No.
thousands. I
Oh,
could be
we
so.
can
Those
we
numbers
can
are
be in
so
the
high.
thousands with commander nights and casual nights and like
That's
come over and help me
fun.
test.
It's okay.
But
Anyway.
if we're counting PTQ and up, I might not be at 1,000. I
There
Oh
don't
no,
you
know.
PTQ and up, I'm definitely. I have maybe a couple hundred. I'm definitely not even close to 1,000.
Yeah, let's turn the corner here to the finish. There was some consternation over the ban and restricted announcement for October. The world isn't perfect, but we can certainly try. So tell me, what is your personal ban list update for this week, Ruben?
Effective immediately, regular brewed coffee is banned. I know this one might be a little controversial, but I'm an old man with acid reflux, so get yourself a cold brewer. Your stomach is going to thank you.
Oh, wow. All right. Power
Fair.
Dragon?
This one's tough, but starting with this weekend's events, anybody who doesn't return their shopping cart, basket, or as you call them in the South, buggies, back to the return at the grocery store is effectively banned. Like, if you don't have time to put your stuff back, you don't have time to shop.
You can tell a lot about a person with how they treat the buggies.
That's the cost that you pay to participate in society.
There you go.
Yep.
So beginning as soon as possible, people listening to their electronic devices or using their speakerphones in public are banned. You're out. It's over. Get a set of Bluetooth headphones. The public is not your personal space. You are not the main character. I know it's hard, but you're not the protagonist of reality. I'm sorry.
Right.
Not even a little bit.
Not even just a little smidge. Thank you so much to H2O Happy Dude for sliding in at the very end there for their 23 months being subscribed. We appreciate you so much. And that ends another live episode of Magic Mike's. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Power Dragon.
Hey, as always, good to be here. Chat's fun. And man, play boosters. Hopefully we enjoy them.
Sounds, hey, it's going to be exciting. We'll see what happens. Thank you, Ruben.
Hey, join us for, I think we're back to Baldur's Gate next week, next Tuesday, and then we'll have our live show on Wednesday again. And we'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in.
Absolutely. We'll move on here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, Mana Traders, my co-host, Power Dragon, and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Please follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online on our Discord, twitch.tv at Magic Mics, on Twitter at Magic Mics Cast, our Magic Mics subreddit, and like the Magic Mics page on Facebook. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.